Thought that I was playing in the past. Now I'm super fast, real raw, relevant. I'm also known as super bad with a super attitude. If you don't like it, you can book a pass and be the first in line to kiss my. Wait a minute, what I mean is I'm a lion, not a sheep. I don't need a weakling around to try to follow me. I'm destined to be better, get it bigger every day. I don't got the patience to sit around try to play. Focus like an animal, king of the.
My friends, welcome to the Revolution podcast. Normally we're just shooting the shit as we jam into this thing. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I wanted to tell you guys thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Those of you who are listening now, wherever you might be, whenever you are listening, I had a really, really, really cool message this morning from somebody who was on a road trip and listening to the podcast and said that it absolutely completely changed the way that they were thinking. So comments like that, I love them. I mean, you do podcasts and stuff. I've got today, I've done the last couple of podcasts I've done by myself. Just kind of a little fire, like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes of just like thoughts, right? And I vibe with those, but Joe Rogan has like really inspired me, and I know you too,
I love him. Yeah.
Just the amount of conversation and the ability to meet cool people, eclectic people, inspiring people. And I don't know that you are, maybe you're all of those things, perhaps all of them. Yeah. My friends, today, my good friend Paul is on here. I haven't seen Paul in a while, and Paul and I we probably just did an entire podcast before we even started with the amount of shit that we just talked. But Paul lives here in Salt Lake, and maybe we'll talk about Burning Man. Paul and I hung out in Burning Man, but we walked in. Interesting thing. So Paul's deal, and we're going to put all your social media links and stuff up so people can check you out and stuff. But Paul's deal is kind of interesting. Paul wears high heels, pantyhose, and are they called jorts? They're not.
They're called action pants, Sean.
They're action pants.
Action pants.
I've commonly referred to them as jorts because they're not shorts, but they're not like
they're
whatever.
Shorts. They're shorts. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I just walked into to the studio here with my kids, and obviously my kids are like kind of looking me up and down, like, Dad, why does this guy have high heels and
where are his pants, Dad?
Where are his pants? Dad, why the fuck doesn't this guy have any pants on? Why does he have a suit and a tie but no pants?
No pants.
And it's interesting because I've hung out with you enough that like I know the story.
Yeah.
But you know what you explain to my kids is actually pretty cool, and this is why I think you and I vibe is a deeper level of consciousness in conversation, whether it's in Burning Man, whether it's here, whether it's there. I mean, I've been around the block enough with you enough times to know that, you know, you're dad and normal dude, but for some reason you enjoy, I don't know, I can't decide yet if it's you that just want to mind fuck people, and you're like, I'm just gonna literally walk around all day and watch how many people I can mind fuck. But you explained it to my kids, so tell everybody why you wear high heels and no pants.
So I'm widely known as the cross-dressing Mormon anarchist,
which is just an anomaly. We could spend 6 hours just talking about that shit.
It is. So the cross-dressing Mormon anarchist, as that, I have this look where I wear like a suit, or like a sport jacket and a dress shirt and a tie, and then these short shorts and nylons and heels, and it's this weird kind of blend of the masculine and the feminine, and I do it for a lot of reasons. And one of them, the one I shared with your kids, is that it represents my worldview, and that is the coexistence of what we call the opposites. And do you want to go deep?
Dude,
let's just go all the way. Okay. Let's go to the Garden of Eden right here. Okay, we're going to go all the way to the Garden of Eden.
Tell everybody, like, first about you. What you wear the high heels, the whole thing, but you've got podcasts. I mean, you're kind of a local dude that everybody knows, and you like to. You and I are very similar, I think, in a lot of ways, because we like to rustle people's feathers. Like, I like to ask people really deep, really challenging questions, and what I'm finding more and more is most people have no fucking clue who they are, let alone the mysteries of the universe, which really excites me. And I know that you're kind of the same way. You like to fuck with people in a way, but you're not as, I guess you could say, abrasive or brash as me, maybe.
Right.
But you do like to fucking go deeper. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Sean, I really think that you and I are, in a lot of ways, cut from some of the same fabric. We just have two different aesthetics about it.
Yeah, you wear high heels and I don't.
And you don't. Yeah. And what's cool is that there are so many groups of people out there that are looking for some kind of like inspiration or leadership or information, and just looking for some sort of an example as to how to show up in the world more authentically. And there are many ways to do that. And you know who your audience is. Like, that's one of your, I think, levels of genius, is you know exactly who you are talking to, and you speak to them with clarity. And the people that I talk to, I'm the same way. Like, I know who my people are, and there's really no overlap there.
Yeah.
You know, and then there are other people that do the same kind of thing. They have their own way of showing up in the world as a provocateur and a messenger, and their demographic, their audience is people that you and I will never connect with, you know. And there's so much work that needs to be done in the world right now that, man, anybody that feels a call to it, anybody that I think they should. I think they should step up. I think they should find a mentor. I think they should really work on moving into their power, because there's just so much that needs to be done. There can never be too many teachers and helpers out there, you know?
Dude, I totally agree. And what's cool is, like, you know, when you talk about like being a provocateur, it's interesting because there's so many labels around words. And you know, you say this or you say that. I mean, it's easy to label somebody a racist, a bigot, a homosexual, a faggot, or whatever it is. Like, there's just labels for everything that we put on everybody. And I get labeled a lot of shit.
Right.
Just by the mere fact that I supported Donald Trump. Right. I'm a racist. I'm a bigot. I'm all of these things naturally. And what's interesting is, like, knowing you know, your attire is an anomaly in and of itself. It's a provocateur, but it sparks interest. Like, is this guy gay? Is he straight? Is he what? And I think what's genius about that is that it gets people talking.
Right.
And I think what's really fascinating about what you're doing is, in a lot of ways, the same thing that Joe Rogan's doing, or Andy Frisella's doing, or anybody who's on a social platform who's either putting their message out there and or asking questions, is really getting people to talk about different shit.
Right.
Maybe stuff that they're not comfortable with. Like, what's your thought around? I mean, that's probably obviously part of your mojo. It's part of what you do. It's what you said. I mean, your attire in a sense is almost like the conversation starter.
It is in a lot of cases. It is a conversation starter. There are a couple of other layers to it. I mean, at the very, very, very base layer of it all, and I just enjoy it for my own sake. It's just,
well, nobody wants to wear pants. I mean, if I could get away with just
you can do it, Sean.
I could. I guess
believe in
technically
you.
I could. I could just wear no pants all day long. See, that's my own limiting beliefs right there. Right
there, yeah.
My own thing that I can't wear.
But I have to wear pants.
Yeah.
Not actually. No.
Yeah.
No, you don't actually have to. But you know, I do it for my own sake. But one of the things I've learned that's really interesting is, as I've lived in my own authenticity, and as I've confronted like fear and threats of social being ostracized and all those sorts of things, what I found is there's a huge kind of power that shows up. And when, like, I'll make it personal, when I've lived in my own authenticity, I've found that there are these additional layers of meaning and significance that show up as well. Like, oh, it happens to be awesome branding for my business. Oh, it happens to be a really great way to network. You know, it happens to be all these things. It happens to be funny. It happens to be like, there's layers and layers of things. So the biggest thing I would want to share with people is, like, there's so much power in living in who you exactly are. No pretense, no bullshit. Just, yeah.
Who are you? I mean, who are you? Like, really, like, who
Yeah,
are you?
yeah.
I mean, we're here talking about you. We're talking about, you know, the idea of asking people that. I think that's a really interesting question, man. In fact, I was literally just meeting with one of my coaches this morning.
Yeah.
And we talked about how the number one question, anybody who's listening to this, who's listened to me for any period of time, or has worked with me or coached with me or part of the Lions Den or anything like that, knows, like, the biggest question that I ask is also probably the hardest question, which is, what do you want?
Right.
Like, what do people want? What do you want? And 99.9% of people fire shit off, which is instantly the superficial worldview. I'm in my box. This is what I was told to believe in,
What I
told
should
to
want. This is what I ought to want.
Exactly.
All the story.
And then you ask people, I think, an even further question or further leading question is, who are you? Like, these are questions that sound so elementary that you and I get a kick out of asking people. And I love it because most people don't know. And that's not a knock against people. I think it's the fact that nobody's talking about
for sure
who the fuck they really are.
Oh, dude, Sean, I've had a huge run-in with this in my life in the past several months. So last year I moved in. I stopped dating for a little while. Like I had this big breakup, and I took some time to do a postmortem and really figure out how I helped contribute to that and kind of sort out my own shit. And then as I came out of the woods on that, I decided, okay, I'm ready to put myself out there again. I'm gonna start dating, but I'm gonna be more conscious about it this time, learn from my lessons. And I worked with a coach who helped me get really, really clear about some of these things. And so I then started, when I would meet women, I would ask them this is so not sexy, but on Tinder and all that shit, I would be going right for the jugular right up front. Like, who are you? What's your purpose in life?
So you're either like mad creeper or like the deepest philosophical Jason Silva, Socrates guy on the planet.
And what I found is that almost nobody knows what the hell is going on with themselves.
It's true, man.
It's wild.
It's funny, but it's fucking sad.
I've learned to be a little more tactful in the way I ask those questions.
You really didn't get laid very much, did you? It was what you're saying. Well, you probably did because it was like you went there and then you're like,
I don't kiss
fuck
and
it,
tell, Sean.
let's just go hang out. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to tell you if my pickup lines work. Those are mine. Don't try that at home, kids.
Yeah.
I mean, you can.
Yeah.
Actually do. Try it.
Yeah.
Try it. See how that goes.
So how did that work out? As you start asking deeper questions, how did that work out?
What's been really interesting is it weeds people out really quick because there's some people that just right off the bat, I wouldn't even bother asking because I can just tell immediately they are not even entertaining this kind of thought pattern in their life. So that would immediately weed those out. And then there would be people that would look like they may be, kind of thoughtful, contemplative types. And even then I would ask or listen really carefully, because people will tell you who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty quick, actually. You get somebody talking, they'll tell you who they are, and you should always listen and believe them.
True.
That being said, I in doing a thing like that, it also creates a kind of accountability to me to maintain my integrity at all times and to stay true to who I am. And it's been I've gone through a couple of different kind of iterations of thought about purpose and about people in the world. It's if you know what your purpose is, if you really know who you are, you've been given a gift. Like not many people do, but everybody can know. Another thing I've learned is that I had this tendency for a little while to impose my ideas about purpose on other people. Like I'd meet somebody and they'd say, well, my purpose is to help other people. And I'd think, bullshit.
Yeah.
That's so codependent. That's not a purpose. You know, what castle are you going to build? Don't tell me about helping other people build their castles. But then I had to take a step back and ask myself, perhaps that is okay though. Maybe that's really what some people show up in this incarnation to do, is to be an assistant. That's where my thought is right now. I'm still sitting with that.
You're still out on that?
Yeah.
So don't you think...
What do you think?
Well, I wanted to ask you a question about something you were saying, because this is, for those of you that don't know, I went to Burning Man 1 year, and I know you're a big Burning Man guy. You've been, multiple times. Yeah. We were just talking about that before we got on here about going again this year. But the one time that I did go, we hung out. Mm-hmm. Which was really freaking cool. Like the camp was dope. I mean, we just hung out
a lot.
Yeah, we had bumped into each other, and then we met
Jesse
up.
Elder.
Yeah, totally. It was was incredible. But my biggest takeaway from Burning Man, and I don't want to make this a plug for Burning Man, but I will. I mean, it's really fucking cool. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think it's just go out and have tons of sex and get trash the entire time. And really, Burning Man, you can make it whatever you want.
Correct.
I almost went home after 2 days. Like I was like, this place is a joke. This is dumb as shit. Well, it's because I was operating under my own personal worldview of something that I knew nothing about. I don't know if I told you this.
No.
But I almost went home, and I was like standing there. I was like, this is just dumb, because I was getting up early in the morning. I was running sprints in the desert and working out on the playa and the whole thing. Yeah, it's funny because people, as I was doing that, people were going to bed, right?
Right.
And I bumped into Jesse.
Yeah.
And Jesse's, he and I hung out. We grabbed coffee, went to center camp, and I'm like, dude, this thing is dumb as shit. Like, Burning Man's fucking retarded. I don't want to be here. And he's like, dude, just be with it. Like, you have way too many expectations. He's like, don't have any expectations, just flow. And I was like, fine, I won't go home. All right. And so it worked. Long story short, it worked. But what I wanted to share about this is, one, Burning Man was really cool, but two, my takeaway from Burning Man was how judgmental I was. Like, I was so incredibly judgmental towards people, is because Burning Man is one of the most eclectic events on the planet, probably.
Right.
Because you literally will have Google, billionaires from Google that will set up their camp, and you will have people literally that might not even have $5 to their name, and everyone is intermingled, and you don't know who's who. You don't know everybody's dressed fucking crazy, so you don't know who's gay or straight. It's half of it's a pride parade, and the other half's like another pride parade. So everybody looks gay, but then they're not gay, but then they're just there to dress up. And so I had a lot of really crazy realizations for me about just how judgmental I was. And in hearing you say that about Tinder, it's kind of like you could see people that maybe, you could tell someone's not really going to go down the rabbit hole, but then maybe they will. There's a lot of perception wrapped around that. There's a lot of judgment wrapped around looking at other people and perceiving that other people would or wouldn't answer a question a certain way. Don't you think?
You're right. Yeah. And people surprise me sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to be open. The trick is like, we only have 24 hours in a day.
Is there really even a trick?
Like, there's this fine line I've been contemplating between, being open to new people surprising me and being open to new discoveries and things like that. And also, like, I've got, we only have 24 hours in a day, and you can't entertain everybody's thought and everybody's idea. Right. You kind of have to do some filtering and be selective about who you give your time and energy to, So I don't know.
It's interesting because as we progress, as I progress, I mean, you and I are around the same age. The more I go down the rabbit hole, if you will, go into my own world, my own space, my own psyche, my own, self-discovery, the more I really am intrigued about people. Yeah. I've got this fired up persona, and I'm out there and this, that, and the other, but at the same time, like, I could sit on my back deck and smoke a stogie and talk about the universe and how little we fucking really know for hours and hours and hours, and that shit fascinates me, right? Yeah. And I think what's interesting about, like, what you're saying is really going into a perspective of just getting to know other people, like just talking to other people. We do that so little. Right. I mean, if you're listening to this right now, really think about that. Like, how many people that you don't know, that you've never met, that you've never had a conversation with, whether they're coworkers, somebody you sat next to at a coffee shop, like, how many people do you really just sit back and talk to and get to know? We rarely do that. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, I'm fascinated by this because I really find a lot of joy in that. I find not only a lot of joy, but a lot of education. And I think what's interesting about it is that a lot of people have, I hate the term limiting beliefs, but just that limiting, like, this is what I know, this is what I'm comfortable with, and this is what I'm going to stay with. Right. And no one really goes outside of that.
I'll tell you, to go along with what you're saying, and is it maybe a bit of a counterpoint to what I said before. I'm all about contradictions.
You can have contradictions.
I'm comfortable with my own contradictions. Yeah. One of the things I have found in my life, one of the things I've experienced is I'll have messengers show up in my life, people who are there to tell me a specific thing, like a very specific thing. And one of the most important ones showed up to me, and I was having one of those days where I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm listening to my Joe Rogan podcast, like, don't bother me. I don't want to pause this. And somebody came along, just a very ordinary human showed up, and the little voice in my head said, say hi. And I argued for a minute. I'm like, this is bullshit. I really don't want to.
Yeah.
But I did. A little voice said, gave me the next question to ask, and I did. And it was absolutely nuts what transpired after that. Like, this person absolutely, without a doubt, this is one of those points in my life where I switched from being very agnostic into, okay, clearly there's a higher power at work here. Like, without a doubt. I've got like clear-cut evidence here. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm okay. I'm checked in now.
You're buying in.
I'm checked in.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, there's really something to being open to conversations that maybe sometimes you don't feel like you want to have. And I don't know about you, but I've found that my own fear around new discoveries and things like that often feels like meh. Like whenever I'm feeling kind of meh about a thing, that's like often my fear cloaked in this weird indifference. I don't know what's it like for you? Like when you're coming up on, not like, holy shit, my life is in danger, I'm about to be eaten by this fucking bobcat, but like the other kind of fear. Like when you're standing on the edge of your ability or the edge of your
Comfort.
What does that fear feel like for you?
This is where your podcast turns into interviewing me, right? You're like, no, actually, I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to ask you. No, here's what's interesting, man.
Yeah.
And I actually just did a training out in North Carolina with some people, some executives from this insurance company, kind of their top 25 agents in the entire country, and a fairly well-to-do group of people. And we talked about this, and this is like a really interesting thing, is I've had a couple different experiences in life that have reminded me of this. My belief is I believe in God.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen three babies come out of a woman's vagina. You
Right.
can't convince me that happened with rocks colliding in the cosmos.
Sure.
Okay. So establishing that out of the gates. And I think
Right.
we're similar in that regard.
Yeah.
Can I explain it? Can I prove it? No. But you can prove that it doesn't exist either. So it's like, let's just agree that neither of us really has the fucking answer.
Correct.
But we have a set of beliefs. But what's interesting is I've always found that first voice, that first feeling, always ends up being right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I've had multiple different experiences with this in life, but if you really stop and think about it, like if you believe in God, if you're listening to this and you believe in God, if you're listening to this and you don't believe necessarily in a God, but you believe in a higher power, you believe that there's some sort of creator, some sort of deity out there that has a creative power versus just evolution and, whatever, then you might vibe with this. I believe that we're connected to something bigger.
Oh, that's so undisputable in my experience.
Yeah,
that's so clear.
And I think that whether you believe in the spirit, whether you believe in a Holy Ghost, whether you believe in this, that, the other, we're being prompted.
Yeah.
And I think we're being guided in a way. Okay. And what's interesting is the more I slow down, if you will, really what that means for me is listening. The more I just shut the fuck up and listen, and whether that be meditation, this and the other, the more I'm guided, the more I hear. It's fascinating revelation about communication, right? Basic 101.
Right.
You talk, I listen, I talk, you listen. Well, we don't do that. We've already got our preconceived notions. We've already got our answers in our head before you've ever even finished your sentence, which is why communication sucks balls for most people, because they don't know how to truly communicate. But what I'm finding, this is the long answer to your question, but I think this is really pertinent to talk about, especially with religion and some other stuff I want to cover with you. That first feeling has always proved itself to be right. And what I'm finding the older that I get is I'll have that thought or that feeling, and then my worldly or secular voice or education or rearing or manipulation comes in, where I'll look at somebody and it's like, say hi, like, nah, dude looks fucking weird, or he's just whatever, or I'm too busy, or this or that or the other. But that thought came for a reason.
Right.
And it might be, say this to my lover. It might be, say this to my mom. It might be, text so-and-so,
right,
or call so-and-so,
yep,
or drop so-and-so a letter, or ping somebody an email, or pull over and help this person. And I truly believe that what we're battling with, if you will, is deity, truth, higher power, clear direction. and our own secular upbringing, which is very much programmed by schooling, by religion, by parenting, and that's what's causing really a lot of strife with a lot of people inside. Is what do I do? Like, I want to be this free person. I want to be this. I want to talk to anybody. I want to have these euphoric conversations, but I don't because just enter, the excuse right here. And so when you talk about like that fear, what I'm finding is like the more I listen to that voice, the less fear I have. Go here, do this, turn here, whatever it might be. It's that first thought, that first thing. The more I listen to that, the less fear I have.
Cool.
But the more I try to like create my own, whether it's deity kind of messaging, it just fucks me. It just completely fucks my mind up because then I create a lot of contention and a lot of confusion. And so, I mean, to answer your question, I think what you're explaining when you talk about fear and talking to people and having that moment is we'll look at somebody and we'll have a preconceived notion or we'll think something. When the idea, go talk to that person, help this person. We deal with a lot of families where there's strife in families or drama or beef, and you think about mom or dad or a brother or sister, and the feeling, the thought process inside is say this, do this, send this, but then we're like, no, fuck you because you did, and then we stay in this place of fear. We stay in this place of resentment of whatever. I imagine, just candidly, like the dress, there's a lot of people that are like, dude, I'm not fucking talking to that guy.
Sure.
Or a lot of people would be like, dude, what the fuck is up with that guy?
Sure.
Right? For me personally, I find like the more I follow that, which is why I love conversations like this, because there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's like, can I get a nugget? Can I provide value? Can I add enough value that I can bring some sort of real contagious infusion of excitement? You know what I'm saying? You look at guys like Joe Rogan. I mean, he's I listened to him and Ben. Did you hear him and Ben Shapiro? Did you see the thing with him and Ben Shapiro?
I think I saw that. I watched so much of all their stuff.
Dude, you got to check it out. Anybody listening to this, Ben Shapiro's got a new Sunday show that he's doing. It's like what's it called?
Oh, I did
Sunday,
see that one.
whatever.
Joe was on Ben's show.
But Joe was on Ben's show.
Fantastic.
Dude, it was mind-bending.
Absolutely fantastic.
But he was, Joe or Ben was asking him, guys, if you haven't listened to this, just go to YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's Ben Shapiro's show, and Joe was just on it. This was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's asking him about the podcast, and he's like, because you're different than other people that I talk to, and other people are different than you talk to. And Ben was asking Joe, is like, you interview MMA fighters, like people that have been on death row. You interview like biochemists, nuclear physicists, like movie producers, actors, like the most eclectic group of people. And what Joe was saying is phenomenal. He's like, dude, I fucking love listening to these people. Like, I truly, genuinely want to learn something. Like, their mind operates so differently than mine, and that rivets me. That's like I'm attached to that. I want to extract everything I can out of their mind, not for the entertainment of a show, but because I want it.
He's just genuinely curious.
He really is.
Yeah.
As am I.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a really interesting shift happening in our culture where there's a lot of people that are moving in that path saying, look, man, the way I've been programmed, the way I've been taught, I'm 37, 39, 40 years old, isn't working for me anymore. Like the people that I was told to hate, I don't really hate. The people I was like told are fucking weirdos really aren't that weird.
Right.
I mean, case in point, go to Burning Man.
Right.
You'll meet some technically quote unquote weird motherfuckers, but you'll sit down and have a 2 or 3 hour conversation with them and be like, dude, you and I would drink a beer together any day of the week.
Certainly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think when you talk about that fear, that's really what it boils down to, is that that prompting that we all feel to be a good human being and have a conversation with somebody, but we wrap ourselves around these concepts and constraints, if you will, of the social and secular upbringing.
One thing I've discovered about this, these promptings, and in some spiritual traditions, and especially the one you and I grew up in, Sean, we call it the still small voice. And that could not be more accurate in my experience. It's, I grew up with this idea that when deity, when God is telling me to do something, there's going to be like halos around it and angels singing and all this stuff. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not that way. It's quiet. It's almost unremarkable. It's just go do this. Go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Just do that. it's so almost unremarkable is the best way I can put it. And there have been so many times when I've followed that and just not really thought anything of it because it's so unremarkable, but really awesome things play out from that. And for those of you, and I know that people that listen to your show are guys. There's probably some ladies that listen.
Dude,
right?
tons of
There's
ladies.
a few ladies. You got ladies
we have
listening.
the demographics of that, Patrick. We should check that out and see.
Yeah, but
I've definitely have a huge Hillary fan base.
Oh yeah,
and Bernie Sanders fan base. Most of the people listening voted for Bernie or for Hillary.
Bernie bros.
No one likes guns. We are an anti-Second Amendment crowd here.
So the people that are listening to your show, I think, probably care about being leaders in their own lives. I know that about what you do. And so for those of you that are listening, one of the most important things you can do is just show up for your thing every day and just do your thing. And there have been so many times, like in doing radio, doing my own show, when I'll feel like I don't feel like super inspired today, but I just show up and do the show anyway, and just do my best, whatever that is in the moment. Oftentimes, that is the best.
Yeah.
So like, I guess what I'm saying is like, if you feel like you need to be having these big, huge, moments, like dial your expectations back and realize that the divine works in like really quiet ways.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Well, it's cool because I don't look at it as like dialing it back. Essentially, like saying, well, don't expect any miracles.
Oh, they'll come.
Because the miracles, to me, if you want to call it a miracle, is that small shit.
For sure. That's what I'm saying.
And to me, like the fact that I can take my crazy, psychotic, ADHD, want to be driving a race truck 120 miles an hour, like shooting guns, blowing shit up mind, and slow it down enough or even quiet it enough, if you will, to hear anything other than gunpowder blowing up or a race truck or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a miracle in and of itself. But I completely agree. And what's interesting, I mean, about, saying that your crowd or your thing, this is what I love about, real conversations with people. And I encourage people listening to this to really get outside of that zone, if you will, of that dynamic of who you typically hang out with. Because look, I understand the philosophy and the idea of you build your tribe and there's a lot of people, and a lot of people that I hang out with are successful businessmen or thought leaders, and some thought leaders and some people that are having, deeper level conversations aren't at a financial acumen as some others, but that's completely fine. But they are leading conversations in, their own life or their own tribe or whatever. But I just think it's fucking fascinating how there's 7.5 billion people on this planet, and we spend 99.99% of our time around the same people pretty much the entire time.
Right.
When you really think about, if I want to expand my business, what other ideas are out there that could help me? Like I've kind of picked all the low-hanging fruit, if you will. And this is actually a really great business lesson for those of you that are listening that are entrepreneurs. I mean, you can pick all the low-hanging fruit from your friends and your colleagues, and you get all that wisdom and knowledge and whatever. But what would it look like if you were to sit in a coffee shop or be talking to some dude on an airplane that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily talk to, or doesn't look like you might want to talk to him? What if that dude's got a nugget that would make you $1 million a year, or double your business or triple your business? It's the same thought process really with anything that we do, moving outside of that comfort zone. And this is something that I teach. In fact, last week in the Lion's Den, one of the challenges that I issued to this group was to send random strangers a message, a video message. Because what's really interesting, if you think about this, and people are like, dude, what's the point? Like when you get a message from somebody on social media, there's like the two kinds, like, hey, if you know 3 people that know 3 people, you can make millions of dollars, buy my shit. I'm trying to pitch you something. Or, dude, you did this post and it was fucking rad. And I really enjoyed it. And here's how it affected me. Here's maybe a way that I see it. That's like a human connection from a stranger that you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. It
sparked my mind. Or who is this person? And now all of a sudden you're looking at them and they're looking at you, and here's this new conversation. That yet we never do that. I mean, we're not programmed to do that. We're programmed to kind of create this bubble, stay inside this bubble, and that's your safe zone. That's your zone. So how do you do that? Like, I know that you do a lot of radio, you've done, TV and podcasts and do a lot of speaking and things along those lines. how do you personally go out there and do that?
And have new conversations?
Yeah.
God, that's a good question, Sean. It's real easy to just get stuck in my zone, for sure. Well, we've been talking about Burning Man. I certainly love that. I like, we have the internet. We have YouTube.
Dude, thank you, Al Gore, by the way. I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor today, Al Gore, the guy who started the internet. Al Gore started the internet, didn't you, Patrick? Patrick's
His
too
invention.
young. Patrick's
Yeah.
only like 17 years old. He hasn't been around very long. Al Gore invented the internet, just so you know, Patrick.
Yeah, I think that
I'm just kidding. He really didn't. He's an asshole.
You can have, the thing that's cool about living today is you can have conversations both literally, like you can be on the bus or out traveling someplace and inevitably have conversations, or you can just be sitting at home on your phone and get into them yourself by just going someplace different. Look up something different on YouTube, or be willing to. I think what it comes down to is a willingness to play with an idea rather than have to be right.
Right.
That's for me. That's what opens the door to these kinds of conversations, because if when you think about a conversation like playing catch, we're not running around the bases, we're not keeping score, we're just throwing a ball back and forth because it's fun,
Right.
and that's it. The simple pleasure. But Joe Rogan is a perfect example of playing catch.
He's a genius.
Yeah. You can tell, like you mentioned, he just loves conversation. And regardless, it's not about whether he agrees with it or not.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah. You really won't ever hear him arguing with anybody.
No.
Ever. If you've
At
ever heard
most,
him
he
argue,
might be like, "That's crazy."
Yeah. I heard him call out one guy once. It was the drummer for Blink. Did you ever see the one with Blink 182? It's what was his name? Not the drummer. Sorry, Travis Barker was the drummer.
Are you talking about
the other
guitarist,
guy? Yeah,
the lead guy,
yeah.
and his like weird.
He's the
business
alien
venture?
guy.
Yeah.
And he was like trying to be all freaking hush hush and low down on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's like, "What the fuck are you talking about, bro? You're acting like you're working with like God and the CIA
Right.
at the same time." He's like, "Dude, we're like." He was essentially, it was, if you haven't listened to that
It was
podcast,
wacky. Tom DeLonge.
Tom DeLonge. It was so fucking funny because it started off just kind of weird, and you could tell Joe was doing everything he could to keep that conversation moving. But
Yeah.
but he was genuinely interested,
Definitely.
So
that's it. Don't let go of your need to be right.
yeah,
And that opens the door to curiosity.
yeah. Don't let go or let go.
Let go
Yeah,
of
let
your
go.
need to be right.
I agree.
Like you can believe what you're going to believe, and by all means know what you know. But when you get into conversation with people, it's all about you leave that behind.
Yeah.
And it's about just playing catch. And a great way to practice this is when somebody brings up an idea that you don't agree with, you can, instead of bringing your counterpoint, just say, "That's interesting.
Ask more questions.
How did you
follow-up
arrive
questions.
at that conclusion?
Right.
Like what taught you about that?" And
Yeah.
I have a friend that I argue with regularly about politics. I've got this list of friends. If I make a political post, they show up just like fucking hornets to a picnic every time. And during the last election cycle, we got into a big debate. It was like a healthcare thing, and he chimed in with his socialist leanings, and instead of trying to go, try to impose my libertarian views on him about it, I just said, "Steve, I know we have really different views on this. How did you get yours? Like what informed you about this?" And then he was like, "Well, I actually lived in Europe for a while, and I traveled from here to here and here, and I saw this and this and this." And by the end of the conversation, I was able to say, "Well, I see why you think that way. I haven't had those experiences." That's cool.
Yeah, and you can just move on without being like, "You're an asshole. You're right or wrong."
Right.
So, since you're on this topic, we were going to talk about politics for a second. We were going to go there because I wanted to ask you something else, which I'll get to.
Okay.
But how do you think? Because you're a libertarian, which is cool.
Sure.
Which, by the way, you did see that I handily beat the libertarian in my congressional run.
I know.
Which was.
He's a friend of mine.
He's cool.
Joe. Yeah, he's great.
Joe Buckman's a cool dude.
He totally is.
Did you talk to him afterwards about that?
No. No.
I think he was fucking shocked. I think everyone was shocked.
Sean, in that moment, I was both thrilled for you as my friend and fucking disgusted with my party. I'm like, if my party cannot get more votes than Sean, who is a newcomer, who is an awesome guy, but is a newcomer into the political arena, who has no national party backing him. What the hell's going on?
Okay,
here,
so
you
let me
guys?
ask you
I
that.
got really frustrated with the Libertarian Party at that point.
So what did you get from that? Like, what did you see from that? What did you learn from that? Because, dude, people have asked me this, like, dude, you gonna run again? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And I have my own takeaways, like, that were really, really profound for me. But what was your takeaway with that?
Well, to be honest with you,
because you're involved. Like, I'd consider you a dude who's involved. Like, you're involved in the political conversation, not only the conversation, but you're also involved, activism in ways different, supporting different agendas and things like that. So you're not just like some asshole on a podcast talking about it, not doing shit about it. Like, you're actually involved. So I respect that.
I was involved in the Libertarian Party at the state level. Like, I was doing stuff at the state leadership level for a little while. And to be quite honest with you, Sean, I got really frustrated with their inability to do anything.
Yeah.
They're like, it's like herding cats, and while, I love the ideas. I love the ideas of liberty. That's what I love. I'm not so much, the Libertarian Party I think is interesting and great. I think we should look at it. I think a third party is probably what America needs. But at this point, like, to think of conjuring up a third party is it's like polishing the knobs on the Titanic right now. The other two parties are just such a goddamn disaster. I'm frustrated. I'm really, really frustrated, Sean. I want, I had a long talk with the national chairman of the Libertarian Party recently, Nick Sarwalk. And
you basically told him that you need to bring me in as the guy because you got a bunch of pacifists who aren't willing to do shit, is what you said, right?
Well, he talked about, it was interesting to hear him talk about the future of politics and how they do a lot of polling, and he's been finding that the newer generations coming up are much more issues-based rather than party-based. And so the whole construct of a political party may be going by the wayside.
Mm-hmm. I think it is.
And it may be much more of an issues-based thing, like, oh, you're the pro-pot, pro-life, pro-gun, pro-blah-blah-blah guy.
Right.
Okay, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Rather than you're affiliated with this party.
Right.
Our parents were concerned with party identification. And that according to Nick Sarwalk, he says that seems to be going away, which is going to change everything about the way we transact political things. So,
well, with scrapping all of his polls and everything else, let's just go with what Sean Whalen said when Donald Trump decided to run. And do you remember what I said amongst all of the insane shit that I said? Which, by the way, I was right on all of it.
Right,
all of it.
Yeah,
I said that you're seeing the dismantling of the two-party system with Donald Trump.
Right.
Donald Trump, and even though you have to think behind the scenes of how Donald did what he did and how he got there. And again, we could take off, like, how long will these cameras run? Like, we go like 6 hours on politics, but really, if you think about the political, Donald Trump was the tip of the spear in what I have said for the last 3 years of the dismantling of the two-party system. And I truly believe that.
Yeah.
I think that you're seeing a whole new generation of people who are just like, Republican, Democrat, it just doesn't fit anybody anymore. And that's what, I thought was really cool about what I did in the congressional run,
right.
Is beat a national party with my really, like, hardly any money,
right?
Hardly any money, which a national party has massive amounts of money, and running on essentially a 90-day campaign, to beat a national party tells you something,
right?
And we could go off on the whole social media thing, but I definitely believe that, like, this conversation of a radical, pendulum shift, if you will, Malcolm Gladwell-esque, is happening, and Trump was the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
Who do you think? So just out of curiosity, we'll just keep on the politics for a second.
Sure.
Who could you imagine right now being a Democratic strategist? By the way,
Jesus Christ,
they
need one.
I want to go to their meetings. Someone find out, please. Anyone listening to this who happens to be a Democrat, which I hardly doubt anybody is.
Right.
If you know where I can go to be involved in the national level Democratic political strategist meetings, I would give anything to sit in those meetings. Like, what the fuck are they saying right now? Like, who could you put up against Donald Trump? Because, by the way, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I just keep saying this so that people know that I'm right. Donald Trump will win by the single greatest margin of any presidential run in the history of America in 2020.
Yep.
Period. Plain and simple.
I agree.
So
I think he'll completely destroy in 2020.
who would the Democratic Party put? Who are they going to put up against him?
I think, honestly,
Your opinion.
I think the best thing the most competitive thing they could do would be to run Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, geez.
I believe this. Okay, look, we're in a new time now. Now it's all about celebrity, like that.
Oh, yeah.
The statesmanship. That's a different topic. This is a popularity contest. It's unabashed now. They've got to run somebody that can really. I think Oprah would be competitive for a couple of reasons. Number one, she's a girl. And a lot of people had their feelings hurt that their girl didn't win because she's a girl, and they love the novelty of the girl thing, and that's fine. I love girls too, but she just wasn't the best candidate. Like, she was fucking terrible. It was just why she lost. And so I think Oprah would resonate more. I think she has everything going for her that Hillary had. And perhaps a bit more. She's more likable.
I could see that.
Nick Sarwark was talking about
He'll completely just steamroller, but I could see that.
Right.
You know
he was talking about in politics now the two things you need to succeed are to be likable and good looking.
Well, I've got
that's
one
kind of it.
I've got one of those too.
Hey, you can work on the other one too.
Not very many people like me, but I I am devilishly handsome. So my
and she's got both of those in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, look, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff she says, but hell, I don't agree with a lot of things that a lot of people say.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that everybody has a fair shake. She's got the money, she's got the name, she's got whatever. But I don't think when you talk Trump train, nobody's stopping Donald Trump, dude. No. For the next 6 years easily. Yeah. I think, again, I don't want to go off on politics, but I like talking to you about politics. I would love to see Cory Booker. I would love to see the Democratic Party put Cory Booker up there because he's just a brash. You know who Cory Booker is? He's just a brash, ballsy, in your face, and Trump would just bitch slap him in the next week. But I don't want to see that because I think Cory Booker will run in 2024 against me, and I want to bitch slap him in 2024.
Long game.
I think it's fun, dude. I think the politics is fun. It really is an interesting time because. You really do have a completely different dynamic of people. And we talk about the millennial generation, this, that, and the other. And I believe what you're saying is true, which is it's very much an activist culture versus an ideology culture. There's people that will attach themselves to multiple different things. Me, like I'm very much an independent conservative. But I agree with Joe Buckman more than anybody else. You know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of the things that he says and does and our ideology of a libertarian, a lot of people are like, dude, you're more of a libertarian than you are a Republican or a conservative. But,
at some level, call it what you want.
Yeah.
Labels or whatever.
Yeah. That's what I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the show. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, and this is something that I think would be really interesting to get your guys' feedback as you're listening to this is, religion, it plays a huge part of our culture. And you and I have talked about this in depth, which I think is a really cool thing because you and I have kind of gone away from the norm. I was born and raised Catholic. I was Catholic for 16 years.
You converted.
And then joined, the Mormon church and was Mormon and served a Mormon mission like you did. Yeah. And now I just don't believe in religion. I have zero strife, zero beef with anybody out there. Baptist, Catholic, Protestant, Mormon. I mean, if you're a good person and you want to freaking, help people, great. If you're a judgmental fuck and you're judging, this guy or that guy or whatever, piss off, dude. I'm really intrigued to hear your idea on, how we can use, because, dude, religion causes more war, more strife than anything. Like, what are your thoughts over the last, couple of years? You've morphed into what? I mean, here you say anarchist. You're not an anarchist. You're as far from an anarchist. You just use that because it's a sexy, tantalizing topic.
Look.
Just like you wear fucking high heels, bro.
Right.
You don't want anarchy. You wouldn't survive an anarchy. You don't have enough guns to survive an anarchy,
Dude,
okay?
I'm as much a Mormon as I am as much a cross-dresser as I am an anarchist.
You're not a fucking anarchist.
I'm none of
but
those
I'll roll
things.
with it because it's a tantalizing it's a good headline, and I'm a headline guy. As a guy who's really interested in copywriting and learning more about
Certainly.
copywriting, you got to have a great fucking
great
headline.
brand.
It's a great headline.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
full of shit about being an anarchist, though.
Of course.
But talk about that because
anarchy is immature.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Anarchy would resort, eventually just simmer down into tribe warfare.
Yeah, which I would run. I would win because I have more guns than most people.
And that's what it would come down to.
Yeah, so I would still be the leader.
Right.
Which maybe we go down that path, man.
We may go there.
That's like Mad Max-ish. I'd be great in Mad Max.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'd have the
sure.
biggest toys, all the guns, all the bullets.
Yeah.
The bullet farm would be my house.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But talk about that because I think, this is a really interesting thing. There's a lot of people, and this has come up very frequently over the last little bit with some of my clients, in fact, is religion, as people start to find their identity.
Yeah.
And going to what you were talking about, really opening yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
I think the older people get, the more people start asking questions, and they're not necessarily buying into, not revolting against, hey, mom and dad raised me Catholic, fuck mom and dad, fuck Catholicism, but just saying, I don't feel this anymore. I don't vibe with this anymore. And I know this is a journey that you've been on, over your life and being Mormon and a Mormon missionary and now, evolving into something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about that.
Religion, first of all, expands far beyond the walls of the church. Religion is clinging to dogma, which is a wholesale bill of ideas, and this happens in politics, it happens in sports, it happens at church, it happens everywhere. This document of you as this thing, you believe this, and this, and religion itself is quite seductive because as humans, we don't like uncertainty. That's how it's in our DNA to want to know what's safe. So we should cut ourselves a bit of slack for that and just realize it's part of our genetics to want to be safe and to know what's going on and to be certain about things. The problem is certainty is an illusion. And so religion, of whatever flavor you want to talk about, whether it be political religion, spiritual religion, whatever, this appeals to people who are uncomfortable in the mystery and who don't really know who they are, and I feel like, God, there are a couple of levels to talk about this on. Organized religion, I think, can be an appropriate place for people that want some community, want some support. Look, some people do need training wheels, and I say that with all the dignity I can muster because, we're spiritual beings, and we're all of different ages, And when you have a kid that's learning to ride a bike, you put training wheels on the bike, and there's nothing disparaging about that, as long as they take them off before they're 16, And then, so that being said, I think organized religion for some people, some souls at certain levels can be that, and that's okay. And I think that those of us who've decided to let go of religion, I think we would do well to take a compassionate view. And that's what it is. Like my own mom, for instance, organized religion is so important to her, and I would never want it to go away. It's a framework for her life, and her life is better off for it. And she's a younger soul, and it works really well for her. But it does create some boundaries, for the way she thinks and sees things. But we all have our own fences, so it's just a matter of being compassionate about the fences that people have and not taking it too personally. That being said, I think that the most important, getting back to our original topic here, the topic at the beginning of the show, it's so important, empowering for people to know who they are and exactly what their deal is, what their work is here on Spaceship Planet Earth. When you know who you are, then you stop depending on other people to define that for you. You stop depending on political parties to tell you who you are and what you believe. You stop depending on churches and leaders, and you stop depending on Facebook to tell you who you are, and all those things. And it's really empowering. Sean, I really believe that the revolution that so many people have talked about, over the thousands of years and recently, is going to be grassroots. It's change cannot be legislated from the top down anymore. We can't make people be good. All we can do is, number one, be good ourselves. Like Jordan Peterson talks about, before you worry about saving the world, clean your room. So clean your room, and once that's in pretty good order, invite some people into your room. Throw a party in your room.
It's true.
And those people will come in your room and be like, man, I fucking love clean rooms. And then maybe they'll go home and clean theirs. I think that's the way.
I agree, man. It's interesting because, growing up in a very religious culture, growing up Catholic and then going into, the Mormon faith and both very, very dogmatic, very, very structured deals. I've never found any strife with anything, and I think what's interesting about what you're saying is that this revolution, if you will, maybe it started 1,000, 2,000, who knows? I think it's an ongoing thing, and I don't think it's necessarily a social or cultural revolution. It's an individual revolution. Are the masses combining, together to go internal in a larger number today than there are yesterday? Who knows? But I think that's really this thing that technology has allowed us to explore more is different ideas. And I believe it, going back to what we were talking about, this idea, this concept of really figuring out who the fuck you are.
Right.
The more I've done that, the more I've realized that I don't need religion. And it's not necessarily, some people it is a need. Some people, they do want the confines, but the deeper questions I ask and am asked, the more I enjoy that, the more I realize that the idea that this is the only way, that my way is the only way, my book is the only book, my theology is the only theology, it's so limiting.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, as you look around and trying to sell someone, like you say, you live in the gray or you want to explore the gray. I love the black and white. I think the gray to me is more frustrating than anything else, because it's look, my definitive black or white or whatever you want to call it is, I just don't believe in religion. I think religion is a hoax. I think it's a total fraud. But I think that it's very, very purposeful and necessary for a lot of people. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but I know for me, my exploration of divinity and whatever else has never been more enjoyable. It's never been more connected. It's never been more fun.
Yeah.
The more I just do me. And I think, talking about this and allowing people to, if you will, experience that, it's a really cool thing. There's a lot of people, man. There's a lot of people that are listening to this right now that are stuck, if you will, in a dogmatic environment where they don't know how to get out of it. If I take this job, if I do this deal, if I marry this girl, if I marry this boy, I'm going to be going against such and such, or breaking tradition or whatever, and will literally, it's in essence, like we talk about living in this box that other people have built that it's not pleasurable. It's not passionate. It's not fun for us. It's causing more and more people strife and frustration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What would you say is some practical, a practical way for people to start asking more questions, to really explore more with this conversation? Because this is hard. It's easy to change jobs. It's easy to change a career or this, that, or the other. It's not easy to change hundreds of years of family tradition or religion or whatever. Because I mean, my own family did that, and it was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, it is. Here is the advice I have. This is what I did. Think about your death. And I want you listeners to think right now, go there with me right now. Imagine that day when you've lived a long, healthy life and you're a little old man, you're a little old lady, and you're lying on your deathbed and you're 90-something years old and you've had a good run, but the time is here and it's here. And you know it's a few minutes away. You know, you've got a handful of breaths left. And when I think about that, first of all, I don't think I'm going to die. But if I do,
somehow there's going to be technology or a chamber or a pill.
I think it's a choice. But anyway, so
boy.
that's another story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so in that moment, in those last few moments, I think about what it would be like to think back on my life and all the things I did and things I didn't do. And there will be a list of things that I did do that were awesome. And that'll be just so joyful to think about those things. There will be a handful of things I did do that were a fucking disaster, just a complete train wreck. And in that moment, I'm not even going to be mad about it because it doesn't matter anymore. It's over, you know? And then there will be things that I'll think about that I wish I would have done, but I didn't do because I was afraid of what people would say. And that would be so bitter and sad to contemplate those things. And I hope that list of things is really, really short or non-existent, you know, when I hit my last 5 minutes. So I think about my last 5 minutes quite a bit. Not so much anymore because I know exactly who I am and I just operate out of that knowingness. But that was one of the things that really helped me get into touch with who I am and what my deal is. And so for those of you that are listening and are afraid of what people are going to say and do, just realize there's going to come a day when all these people that you're worried about, they're going to be in the dirt, man. They're going to be gone. And even if they're not, you will face that dirt someday. And there is going to come a point where you will be so grateful. Think of how grateful you will be for having lived authentically and for having taken those chances. And the train wrecks, I don't think they're going to matter at the end. You know, like we're all going to skid out and make some messes, but we tried. You know, and when you do that, you know this, Sean. Like when you skid out, you learn all kinds of things. You know, and the next ride is even better because of it. So don't be afraid to do that. God, I could just there's just nothing more. And when you live in your authenticity, all kinds of new abilities and gifts show up. Doors open. Like there is just beautiful kinds of power that will show up in your life. I could go on and on about it.
I know. And it's funny that you say that because you and I haven't talked in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, 6 months or so. I think the last time I saw you was with Senator Madsen's deal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With the medicinal marijuana thing.
Yeah.
What's funny is like what you're saying right now. Literally, I say over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
To people because my single greatest something happening to my children is like one of my greatest fears.
Sure.
That I wouldn't be able to handle that I wouldn't be able to recover from that. But I have vision, I think, and I see stuff. But my single greatest fear is laying on my deathbed, which I'm probably not going to be ever on a deathbed. I'll die in like a blazing crash in my race truck, or I'll put way too much tannerite in a car and it'll blow up and shrapnel will rip my face off, or I'll do something stupid.
It'll
and
be
I'll
awesome.
It'll be really cool. And I hope there's cameras around when, my magical time comes. Right. But let's just hypothetically say that I don't kill myself before that time and I am laying on a deathbed. My single greatest fear is I've had this visual of laying in this bed, knowing that God put ideas in my brain and like passion and vigor in my soul.
Right.
And I squandered it.
Yeah.
Because I was worried what other people would say. Because at that moment, you now don't have an option. Like you and I have an option today. Every one of you listening to this podcast right now has an option. Mm-hmm. You what you just said is dead on. Like you quit your job, I guarantee you a whole new skill set, a whole new way of thinking and being will just instantly come into your space in your life when you now know no one's going to write you a check every 2 weeks and you got to go hunt and you got to provide. But most people will never take that jump.
Yeah.
Most people will never go down that path. Most people think that they'll live forever, and so they don't ever have those tough conversations. They don't ever close those doors. They don't ever right the wrongs or remedy the relationships. And so we live with this concept that it's just something that's just going to magically happen. And like my single greatest fear, bro, is like, imagine that. I've imagined this, laying in my bed knowing my body no longer works. I can't go do all the shit that I wanted to do. I can't race in the Baja. I can't go do any of this. And so that's why for me now at 39 years old, like I'm just ravishing this freaking experience that I'm having, dude. And talking to anybody and everybody and living it and doing it and experiencing it. Because there will come a point in time, maybe heaven willing, you know, we can Michael Jackson our way into another reality and live forever, right? The idea that this chamber that I sleep in every night is going to make me 900 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens or not, but what I do know is like at some point in time, my ticket's probably going to get punched.
Sure.
And I'm terrified that I squandered today because of what some asshole on some plastic 6-inch piece of, you know, plastic device in my hand, some asshole on the other side of the world judges me or says something and I don't go live or say or do because some freaking fake dude says you're an idiot or that's stupid or that's dumb.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that's real. I mean, it's real. That's not religious. That's not black. That's not white. That's not gay. That's not straight. That's not Republican or Democrat. That's real talk. That's real shit. Because everybody's ticket's going to get punched. And one of the things that I share frequently, you know, in Lions Not Sheep and the Lions Not Sheep experience and everything that I do, you know, if you walked through a cemetery, like I'm fairly certain that every single one of those people in that cemetery would give anything for another hour on this planet. Mm-hmm. I'm fairly certain that every single person laying in that cemetery would give anything for another hour to call, to talk, to text, to something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hell, maybe there's a handful of people that are like, fuck this, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And they're good being
I'm good.
there. I don't care about my family, whatever. But I mean, it's real, man. You walk through a cemetery and those people no longer have an option. They no longer have an option for authenticity. They no longer have an option to share their feelings, their thoughts, their ideas, their passions, their loves. They no longer have an option to ask that stranger in line a question, to talk to your neighbor on an airplane, to text, to reach out to a coworker, you know, an associate or whatever. To me, that's like the most terrifying thing ever, is to not have an option.
Yeah.
To no longer have options where you're confined to this end. Yeah. Like that scares the shit out of me, man. There's nothing to me more scary than that.
Yeah. One of the things that you talk about all the time that has shown up in my life too, and while we're talking about authenticity and living in your fullness, there have been a number of times in my life where I'll be cruising along, thinking about one of my dilemmas, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about that? You know, and I'll have these moments where I stop and I just stop the bullshit. I stop lying to myself about what I actually want. And every time I've done that, it's wacky, Sean. Like every time I've done that, things start changing really fast. Mm-hmm. And it's the best way I can describe it is it's like a big exhale. It's a feeling of like letting go of a thing. It's relief. It's peace. It's quiet. It's solid. It's fucking grounded. But yeah, I've had that experience many times when I'll be caught up in the hamster wheel of like, well, it should be this way and it should be that way and should. But what is it?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? There have been a few times where I've, I don't know if alcohol was involved or not. It might have been. Look, sometimes it can help to let down some of those barriers and get me talking with myself about, well, what is the deal really? You know, what do I really want in this situation? Well, let's just talk some crazy talk for a minute, shall we? Yeah. And just go nuts. And there's often truth that shows up in that, like really beautiful truth. So, yeah, just wanted to punctuate that, you know.
It's interesting, man. And you know, you and I vibe with this, and hopefully people listen to this, you get a nugget or two. Like, that's the thing about podcasts, about media, about everything is like, you know, if you get one or two nuggets out of something, it's worth it to me. I'll listen to a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast and I'll get like one nugget and I'm like, it blow my mind, right? Yeah. I'll read The Way of the Superior Man, or I'll read As a Man Thinketh, you know, my favorite book by James Allen, and I'll get like one nugget and it's just like blowing my mind. But it's really, it's dude, we have options now. We have possibility. you know, and when you stop and think about why we were really put here, what's the purpose? When you talk about purpose, people, dude, you go to Barnes & Noble or Borders, what's your purpose? I truly believe, like I laugh when people ask me that question.
Yeah.
Because my purpose literally is to live this second and then the next second and then the second after that.
Yeah.
I'm being totally serious. When people
I get
ask me,
you.
what's
Yeah.
my purpose?
Yeah, I get you.
My purpose is to literally live this very second.
Right.
No, there's got to be some grander thing, Sean. You have millions of people and listeners and followers. Like, what's your life's purpose? I'm like, motherfucker, I want to live this second to like the most euphoric capacity that I can. And then do that again the next second. And then the second after that. I might be fucking dead by dinner. Like, I might not wake up tomorrow. So, hey, you know what? Let's go schedule watching the sunsets in Hawaii next year. The fucking sun's going to set right now.
Right.
Like, watch this sunset right in front of you. Shut the fuck up, experience this. So people ask me, what do you want? So I had some guy the other day, like flipping. He's like, yeah, you keep asking me these questions. What do you want? I'm like, I want to play. I want to play with my kids. I want to throw the football with my kids all day long. Like, yeah, well, that's not possible. Really? Why isn't it? Why isn't that possible? Why is it not possible? Why can't I not wear pants all day long, right? I legitimately can.
You can create whatever
You can do
version
whatever
of
the
reality
fuck you want.
Yeah, it's all out there.
It's really true. I mean, this is no bullshit, friends. Like, this is, wrapping this whole conversation around. Like, my purpose literally is to live this second.
Yeah.
Because there might not be another one. And if I'm thinking forward and worrying about tomorrow and the next day and the next day, don't get me wrong. I don't just wake up going, dude, what do I do today? This is going to be fucking dope. I have plans. I have systems. I have structures. But my inside of those plans and systems and structures is the capacity and the ability for me to build a life that allows me to literally live every second, because that's what I want. I want to do whatever the fuck I want to do. And so if I'm doing something that doesn't allow me to do whatever I want to do, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm loving having conversations with people. So I keep the podcast. If you listen, great. If you don't listen, great. But like, I'm having fun having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think this goes back to what we're talking about in the social programming that we've been through, social, religious, educational program that we've been raised and reared with. And you might be 20 years old listening to this, and I can rah you into like hustling and grinding. And there's plenty of dudes out there that will tell you all that. But at the same time, like, you might not have 20 years. You might not have 20 years to grind and to hustle and to then go live your life, because you might be fucking dead in 3.
Right.
I'm not saying to just check out on life and eat, drink, and be merry, but I am saying that, like, if you're not focused on making every second the best fucking second possible, you're missing out on this boat, man. Because eventually your ticket's going to be punched. And like you said, you can't go back and change anything now. You can't go back and do anything about it. I want to literally be on my deathbed, my arms behind my head, like, that was freaking rad as shit.
I hope I'm high-fiving people.
Yeah,
like,
my kids are going to be like, Dad, that was badass. Like, you're good. Like, you can go. I'm like, peace, I'm out. You know what I mean?
like
I
Hugh
did
Hefner.
it all.
I think about Hugh Hefner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling he didn't. He was probably just high-fiving people all the way out.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm buried, I hope that my kids will have the mortician put my hand up in the coffin so people can just high-five me when they walk by.
That'd be pretty funny. We'll just put like a bunch of popsicle sticks or like a
put some
rod or
rebar
something
in there.
like that.
Just put
Your
some
hands
rebar
up.
in it. Yeah.
Come in and high five Paul and his.
Yeah, just high-five me. Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate you, man. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, and there's really no rhyme or reason to some of these conversations we have, and I love it. And those of you that got value out of it, awesome. And those of you that got value out of it, awesome. And if you didn't, then great. You know what I mean? But I bet you did. So anything else you want to share with the mystical, magical land of technology and people listening?
Let's see.
Cars, iPods.
I feel good. I feel like it's been said.
Yeah?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Do you? Yeah, we need to do more of these, man. We need to, we really should do what we talked about doing. We need to do a show.
Yeah, we
Like,
kicked that
for
idea
real,
around.
man. Because remember we went to Park City and we did that, and like, I'm the
Yeah.
bearded American badass, and you're the guy that people are like, what the fuck is going
the hell
on
is
with
this?
this
Yeah.
man? He's got high heels. We really should do a TV show together. It'd be
That
pretty
could be
freaking
fun.
It'd
Yeah.
be pretty funny. But anyways, I appreciate it. My friends. Listen, just keep doing you, man. I mean, you've heard me say this, and I can rah everybody about success and business and money and stuff. And look, I do that all the time because I believe in that. But you know, the conversation today is real. It's not morbid. It's real. Like your ticket's going to be punched at some point in time, and that's the God's honest truth. And maybe 50 years from now, there's a way out of that deal. But for right now, if you can't make it the next 50 years, your ticket's going to be punched, man. And there's nothing, in my opinion, more scary than the idea that like I lived a life by somebody else's rules. I did shit because I was told to do shit versus doing shit the way that I wanted to do it, you know?
If you're not having fun, I think you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you can work hard and you can be highly productive and you can do all those things and be having a lot of fun too.
I do have a blast.
I know you do. Yeah.
I have a blast doing what I do, and my clients get huge results and have success with that. And I think that it translates into, you know, not only the value you put into the universe, but the value the universe gives back to you. And I think you just got to listen. You got to listen more. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we can keep going on and on and on. How long have we been talking, Patrick? 1:15. All right, it's an hour.
Perfect.
Everybody's bored. They're already getting off their airplane.
Good night, everybody.
My friends, thank you for listening to the Revolution podcast. I appreciate you. We'll have Paul back on here at some point in time. Please share the podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you get value from this, which I hope you do, please share it with your friends. Please subscribe on iTunes. You know, I don't get paid to do this. I do this because I love it, and I love adding value to your space. And you sharing with your friends is a phenomenal compliment. So those of you that do it, thank you. Those of you that don't do it, quit being a lazy sack of shit and actually go do it. Is that motivation for everybody?
Perfect.
I love you guys. Thank you very much. We're out. See you next time.
My people, it's time to move out, show 'em what we do now. They say that work seems so hard to follow. I am not a role model, only a teacher. Teach 'em when the school's out. Preacher man preaching to each his own. Mano, we mano, fly away.